So here we are, another episode. This will be 141 of the Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And I've called it Ascension with A Course in Miracles because we are literally using the Course in Miracles to walk up the what I'm going to call the spiral staircase of consciousness. We descended, we came down into lower thinking. We are now working our way up and moving through these levels and ascending to higher thinking. As a matter of fact, I have a dear friend who's created these posters for me. He's working on one. It's a little more complex because I want him to include a spiral. I want the spiral to show how low we go. And I also want the spiral to show how high we ascend. So it's a little tricky because it's taking him he's been listening to lots of my or some of my videos so that he can get an understanding of what I teach and the things that I share so that they can become integrated into this one drawing. He's done a couple that I'm getting ready to go print because I'm going to use these drawings. They paint such a perfect, clear picture so that people can see what it is that is happening within us and without. So this drawing, this cone is really a spiral staircase. Of course, that doesn't show it so clearly. People sometimes call it an inverted triangle, but it's really a staircase. It's spiral because we can go around in circles if we want to. Consciousness allows for that to happen. And when we are unconscious, we go down. It just works that way. When we become conscious, we begin to ascend. But to ascend and not get stuck in loops, you really have to be aware of where you are. And you've got to recognize where you've been because you don't want to go back in that direction. So being conscious is a prerequisite to ascension. To use A Course in Miracles, and lots of people study A Course in Miracles that are unconscious, meaning they read the words, they sound beautiful, sometimes they sound challenging, sometimes they sound inspiring. They can be with whatever is happening to them in the moment and not use it deliberately to take a step out of where they're at, to take a step in the direction that they prefer. So I believe Course in Miracles is the absolute most simplest explanation of how the ego is formed, what it does, and how to undo it. And in the third dimension, we have to have an ego. Ego is prerequisite. You have to believe things that are not true to descend into suffering. Because if you believe what is true, you never go there. You stay in a high frequency. You stay in love and joy and peace, which are the domain of consciousness. However, consciousness, because it does love, it allows anything. It doesn't love, it is love. It allows for anything to be experienced, just like a loving parent allows its child to go through whatever it goes through to learn their lessons. And when, I've got 3 kids, I have had to witness my children doing things that even though I suggested I wouldn't do that if I were you. Maybe when I was more of an unconscious parent with my first child, I said to her, don't do that. But she still broke the rules of the house, if you want to call that, the rules of the house, and did things we told her not to do. Now, what ended up happening with at least 2 of the kids, the third one he's still doing a lot of things that I would prefer, that he doesn't need to do. I would prefer he learn the easier way, but he will tell me, Mom, I'm stubborn and I learned the hard way. I'm like, okay, then that's your reality. I've learned a lot of things the hard way. They were just as powerful lessons. So we don't have to learn the easy way. That's not a prerequisite for any of us, but there is an easy way. So if we want to take the harder path, we can choose to then not remember the truth that helps us move on the easier path. One of the things that is crucial for ascension, that is crucial for moving out of the lower dimensions is curiosity. When the ego is in judgment, notice how you're always right. You know what they did. You know what should be done. You know what should change. You know what, if this was different, then it would be better. You are right, righteous. Well, it requires, to move, it requires curiosity. Curiosity is the doorway. If you're not curious about another way, your righteousness holds you in the space that you're in. This is when you go around in circles, because if you got to be right about what you know, and what you know is actually not accurate, you're going to go around in circles doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And sometimes you don't even expect a different result. You just want to be righteous, and you're going to spin. So when we become curious and we use something like A Course in Miracles to question what is another way, we have to be willing to understand that the Course is a course in training our mind to recognize that there are two options. That's what this drawing is all about. When we're operating with God's will, God's view, God doesn't want any of us to suffer. And when I speak of God, I speak of the Father, Mother, creative source of all that is, the life force that is the energy that everything emanates from. It's the consciousness. You can call energy consciousness, is the knowingness that everything comes from. That's why it experiences peace, because it's not going anywhere. It is all that is. And it experiences joy because it's constantly in a state of creation. And it loves all that is. It experiences that, and at that level of consciousness, the source of all that is doesn't go up and down in emotions. That's a human thing. So the love of consciousness is an acceptance that all can choose to do whatever it chooses to do. And because all are created in the image of the Creator to experience. And in the human realm, when we decide, you know what, I don't just want to be non-physical energy. I want to experience what it's like to be a human. Or I want to experience what it's like to be a rock, or to be a tree, or to be a blade of grass, or to be a planet. Everything that appears manifest is creation experiencing an aspect of itself, because it is all that is. So it is experiencing all that is. So there is a total acceptance that is all right, go try it, and then give back to the source information. What was it like? Because when it gives back information, as we are doing on this human plane, we are realizing, you know what? That it was interesting going down into darkness and descending into our own human hell. You know what? It's really interesting. And lots of things happen there. There are murders and rapes and stealing and cheating, and there's all kinds of things. There's fear, and there's anger, and there's revenge. It's very interesting. It really, truly is. It's an amazing haunted house with all kinds of scary, creepy things. When you can see that and go, well, I could go and have more of that, or I could try something that is more joyful, more exciting, more fun, that, if you've been there, done that consciously, you're aware what suffering is all about. You don't want to go back there. Why? Why would you go back there? It's like any amusement park. If you get on a ride that you don't like, why would you get back on it again? Well, that's where we have free will. The Father's will is that we do whatever it is that we want to do to allow us to experience how powerful we are. That is what love at the level of creation is about. Go try it out. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. And if you don't like it, as you move back towards what you prefer on the path, you'll meet people that you can share your experience, and some will be going down while you're going up, and some you guys will stop. We meet, like, for example, here, some of us are meeting to have information. We're sharing information. I'm sharing what I know. You take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. And if I'm rising on my journey, if I'm continuing the path of ascension, and some of you are doing that, and others who might come to this call, they want to suffer. this conversation is not interesting to them. They don't want to hear how to shift and lift. They don't want to hear because they're using their creative power to try that amusement park. That's where they want to go. They want to go to the haunted house in the amusement park. If we just want to ride in the love canal, or we want to ride the merry-go-round, or the easy things, well, then we are choosing to continue on a path that has to clearly not operate by the laws of the ego. And by the way, the ego's laws are all made up, so it's really not anything solid, but you have to make a decision that there are two systems you are choosing between. So if you want to operate under no laws but God's, you have to choose to understand what God's laws are. And of course, we have been indoctrinated into believing things about God that are not true. And when you begin to wake up, when you begin to ascend, you realize, oh, that's why they put the fear of God in us. Oh, that's why they tell us that, Jesus was crucified for our sins. We are the bad people. Oh, that's why they tell us that we have to do things in a specific way, because the ego is all about control. And anybody who operates here, that runs institutions, programs, systems, religions, if they're running them in the 3D world, is because they are doing it from their ego. And once it becomes real clear what is the ego system: control, lies, manipulation, haves, have-nots, specialness, better than, rights and wrongs, and punishments for the wrongs and rewards for the rights. Once you see that game, you can pretty much listen to anything. You can read anything. You can watch anything. You can listen to any song, and you can go, oh yeah, there's the ego. There is a, the song that says, since you left, I can't live my life anymore. Since you left, I've been miserable. That's ego, because nobody has to be miserable because somebody leaves. If somebody leaves, it just creates space for you to try something new. You don't have to be miserable. You don't have to have lost your will to live, or your desire for life, or for peace, or for anything, just because somebody left. But we get programmed by listening to songs, reading articles, watching movies, watching the news, be in school, that have a very deliberate process of indoctrination into the ego system of understanding. And of course, it creates its laws, its rules, its regulations that tell us that if we follow them, then it's good. If we don't, then there's punishment, and you got to go to court, and you got to pay fines, and you can possibly go to jail. You might even get put on the electric chair. Rewards and punishments. So that system of the ego is what those of us who are curious about another way, if you are like, you know what, this is boring and tiring, then all you do is say, God, what would you have me do? Show me another way. I am ready to receive. You, in curiosity, you begin to attend anything and everything that you feel drawn to that assists you in your evolutionary path. Now, once you realize that it's all just in your mind, then you don't need to keep seeking for anything anymore. If you go somewhere, it's just for the pure fun of it, not because you're seeking. You need somebody to help you understand anything. You realize that you are the creator of your reality, because we are made in the image of a God that creates. We are made in the image. As a matter of fact, in my own experience, the place that I'm in my journey, thanks to the teachings of A Course in Miracles, is to realize that I and the Father, Mother, God are one. There is no creator outside of me. Some of the channelers that teach these things, for example, like Aaron Michelle, it's very clear. You hear the message that I am that I am. I am that. There is nothing else outside of me. So for me, there is a movement to come within, intimately know what God is, and from that place radiate out the experiences that I'm having, which are going to be love, joy, and peace, which come from acceptance, because I'm tapping into the reason God created all that it created. And it's really simple, so that we can experience, so that we can share what happens in all the infinite levels of possibility. And while we are believing that the only possibility available to us is to work hard, to bust our butts, to work 40 hours, to make money, to spend 40 years, 40 hours a week and 40 years in a company, and then you can retire. If we wanted to experience that possibility, but there are possibilities where you don't have to work to have what you want. There are possibilities when you can just enjoy being at the beach if you want to, enjoy cruising the universe in a beautiful spaceship, or no spaceship if you want to, because your mind takes you there anyways. If you want to begin to experience different possibilities, you've got to be willing to untether yourself from the one that you think is your reality. And for so many humans right now, we are seeing the crumbling of so many systems that hold us in that this is the way it is. Well, I worked all these years, I made my money, or I paid my money, and then I retired, and now the government gives me a Social Security. I get a pension. I've got a set income. What do they call that? Yeah, we have a set income, fixed income. That's the word. That when we retire, then with that fixed income, if it's a lot, you can play a lot on the planet. If it's not a lot, then, well, you have minimal amount of things that you can do. And if you're afraid that the government, the new president, the old president, they're going to change the system and you're not going to have as much, or it's going to alter your fixed income, sends you into fear, then you are saying, that is my reality. That scares me if they do this over here. Curiosity says, well, what if I lived in a world that there was nothing like that? What would that look like? Then you have to be willing to utilize your imagination as the creative source of all that is. What are some ideas? This is when we align with our soul vision to begin to see things differently, to begin to see things from a totally, completely expanded way. The process of indoctrination to bring us down into the insanity of the ego happens when we're itty bitty and we are trained out of using our imagination. We are trained into regurgitation in school. They tell us what to know, that those become the truths. You're rewarded if you know them. And by gosh, if you're using your imagination, you're daydreaming in class. I know it happened to me a lot. Either the eraser from the chalkboard is going to come flying and hit you. And of course, you got all that chalk dust on you. For those of us who grew up with chalk and erasers, I used to clean the board for the teachers, so I'm very familiar with chalk and erasers. But I'm also familiar with getting hit on the head or on the body with an eraser, because I'm looking out daydreaming, because everything that I was experiencing within myself or outside of the classroom was so much more interesting than the repetitive nature of the stuff of indoctrination. So anyhow, we are trained out of using our imagination. We got to train ourselves back into imagination. Imagination is very high frequency, because notice a baby. And as I shared with you guys about the experience in the last video, in video 140, the experience that I went through with helping to deliver my granddaughter, that child, there's nothing missing there, nothing at all. That kid came in. It's an expression of God with everything that she needs to have whatever life she wants to have. Her imagination, her ability to regulate her emotions, her ability to desire, to want to do things. That I see my 3-year-old grandson, he wakes up in the morning ready to play and have fun, and nobody taught him how to play. Nobody taught him how to have fun. Nobody taught him how to imagine. Nobody has taught him that. Nobody taught him to talk. We say words that then he remembers, and then he puts those sentences together with those words and he speaks. But we can't teach him how to speak. Nobody sat there and say, okay, you're going to open your mouth. Your vocal cords are going to do their thing. We don't do that, because a child comes in wired automatically with all that it needs to have a life of ascension, unless it meets unconscious parents who are down here who are going to pull them down to where they're at. We all do that. We all do that. That's why we have to work through childhood trauma, because we're basically cleaning up the lower frequencies that we got raised inside of, because we got pulled down because we were too immature to stay at our level of frequency and ascend from there. So what the Course wants us to understand is that there are only two ways of looking at everything. Higher frequency, God's will; lower frequency, this is where the ego creates attachments to truths, to its own ideas of truths, all based on lies. So we have to block God with lies. Why else would you block love, joy, and peace? You must be lying to yourself. You must be deluding yourself into thinking suffering and pain and jealousy and lack and limitation, it's going to be more fun. Well, yeah, it's going to be more fun as an experience when you know as a soul, I'm going to go into the haunted house on planet Earth, and then you have that journey. But once you see it, why would you pick to continue to suffer when you can choose to continue to expand and just have more joyful experiences? But you have to be honest. You have to be honest. Anytime you think you're right about anything, you're right about what somebody should do, you're right about how you should do things. It's like my trip to Colorado. I thought I knew that the right place for me was Georgia. I thought that I knew what was right for me in terms of where my friends are, the things that I did. And then all of a sudden I felt, okay, no, I'm moving. And I was like, oh, I don't really like that, the sound of that voice, because my ego was like, but this is what's right for us. Well, that was right for my ego. But for my soul, the expansion, the things that are activating my ascension, my growth are here. And once I became and I knew the pull was so strong that I didn't resist the pull. My mind, definitely, my ego mind judged the pull and judged what I was doing and thought I was crazy. And I had people and friends who thought, you lost your mind. Yeah, I lost my ego mind. I was listening to God's mind. And this is where I needed to be. And I totally get why I am here. There's amazing things that are happening here that are, and it's not just coming here to deliver my granddaughter. That in and of itself is a life altering experience. But there is so much that is absolutely perfect about me being here, because I just feel it. I feel it inside. That's because I don't have all those ego attachments to where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do and what my house is and my stuff and those things. I'm not attached to material things. I know, like you, sweet sister Stacy, you let go of all those things and it frees you. But if you're attached to them, it's scary to let go of things that you think keep you safe. And they're just part of the identity that our ego creates. Well, if I have this and this, then so and so. But when you're not your human identity, then you move into the place of finding out the truth of who you are, which is a loving being with insight and intuition designed to experience joy, because you allow yourself to be embodied, to have spirit in your body, to be embodied as pure consciousness. I am that I am. I am that I am. Period. Once that becomes super clear that you are the creative source, you don't look for that outside of yourself. And last week, or the last time that we met, because I know we didn't meet last week, but the last time that we met, we completed in chapter 30, which is titled The New Beginning. And this is just so perfect. This Course in Miracles, the text has 31 chapters, and we are just in chapter 30, not because we have been going in order and we got to chapter 30 in 141 sessions, not at all. We started we bounced around. So there's a lot more to cover that will take my lifetime to really get to the depths of what is taught in this marvelous teachings. But we're in chapter 30, because the reason I was inspired to go there is the title of that chapter is The New Beginning. Those who are aware that we are in the midst of a shift, that we get to pick, am I going to ascend or am I going to descend? Am I going to move up in frequency? Am I going to go down in frequency? Have made a decision that we don't want to stay 1 foot in the ego world, 1 foot in the truth. We have made a decision to ascend. So that is a new beginning, that you're not living your life by what the ego wants you to do. You're living your life by what the creative source is inspiring to do, because you're tapping in to that intuitive awareness that allows you to hear where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to get together with, because you are creating a new beginning. The new beginning is the new earth. A Course in Miracles states that while we believe that we really are humans, that we are on a planet and we have bodies, there is an aspect of ego still present. And I'm having a drawing done. One of the new posters has the yin and yang sign in it. So, it's that circle where half of it is black with a little white dot in it. The other half is white with a little black dot in it. It's teachings from the East. While we are in this world, we're always going to have a little bit of ego. So we can enlighten ourselves enough, but still believe that we have a body. So we're going to always have a little ego. But the ego will not run your life. You will use the ego, which is the part of the human experience that says, well, I have a body. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to floss. I'm going to do whatever it is. So for example, today I went to see my naturopath and had her draw blood because I want to do a baseline. I want to know the baseline of my blood work. I have been drinking distilled water now for quite a few years. And when you distill water, there's nothing left in it. It's pure H2O, pure H2O. There's no minerals, no vitamins, nothing. So I know that I want to replenish my body's natural minerals and the things that it needs to operate optimally. So we drew the blood and she's going to give me the markers, and then we're going to establish, okay, what are some minerals that I'm not currently taking that I'm missing that I want to take? Because I have a body vessel that I'm taking care of, no different than I take care of my car. I take it in for servicing and change the oil and rotate the tires and do those things because I want it to last me as long as possible. Well, I want this body vessel to last me as long as possible. I used to think I was going to be here till 100, but I keep getting that it's going to be closer to 120. So I want to take care of this body vessel. So there's a little bit of ego that is taking care of the body, but that's okay. It doesn't run my life. I recognize that I am using the ego mind, which is nothing more than the belief that I have a body and it is separate from other bodies. I'm good with that because now that I use my mind to understand that we're all divine beings having human experiences, my heart is wide open. I don't need to be judging people. And when I do, I forgive myself very quickly. If there's an apology that is necessary, then that gets done. My son recently, one of my sons was bit by a dog, and in conversations with him, he was telling me how angry he was at these people who didn't help him because they were afraid of the dog. So they didn't help him and they let him get all bit by the dog. And for a second, I felt this judgment towards these people. And I said to my son, Spencer, oh my gosh, please forgive me. I just inserted judgment into your experience, and I quickly clean it up because I am so present to observing. Why? Because as the embodied presence, I don't have to let the need to be right by the ego ever run the show. I don't need to be right about what these people did wrong. I don't want to put that frequency in me, because then if I do, I know I'm descending. So as we study the Course, the new beginning is for those who want to co-create a new world. If you're not curious about another way, if you're not curious about the truth of God, if you're not curious about our connection as energy that operates, we're all energy expressing itself differently. If you're not curious about how to live a life of freedom and liberty and understanding, eternal life and experience happiness, if you're not curious about that, it's because you enjoy You're getting something out of misery and righteousness and suffering. And you've made a decision that that's what's real. See, I've made a decision that what is real for me is my ability to create as a creator. So why would I want to create being in lack and bondage when I can just as easily change my mind? I shift and I lift my vibration. And it is that simple. It's a shift in perception. So as we continue in this section, we just completed the previous section that talked about the only purpose. This world has one purpose, for us to see, are we descending or ascending? Are we living with the ego? Well, then all the irritations are invitations to see what we've been projecting as our reality. But if you want to operate in a new beginning, and what the Course in Miracles calls a happy dream, if you want to operate in the co-creation of a happy dream, you've got to stop talking about the old. You've got to stop talking about the bills. You've got to stop talking about the sickness and the illness and the what went wrong and you can't afford. And that is the conversation of the ego down here. But if you want to co-create a happy dream, you've got to be in a conversation that is higher frequency. That's why I started a group called the Happy Dream Creators, where we come together every other week. And everybody's invited to join that. We did it on Facebook. It's a private group. But if you search Happy Dream Creators, we come up, or you can contact me and I'll give you a link to join. We gather every other week, and it is all about high frequency. It's not a place to come talk about the issues of the world, because a happy dream creator has no issues. A happy dream creator is recognizing how powerful we are and how are we using that power for the greater good. So there's only one purpose for the world, and it's to show you what you're believing. You're either creating a nightmare or you're creating a happy dream, period. So we completed that section. And now we are in the next section, which is section number 6, the justification for forgiveness. A Course in Miracles teaches basically one thing continuously that is crucial to our being able to experience life as God intended for us to experience it, which is happy. And that is to forgive ourselves for having forgotten how powerful we are. We forgot that we are the ones who created the nightmare. We forgot that we're the ones who believe in lack and limitation because we wanted to have the experience of what is lack and limitation. We then must forgive ourselves for having made all of that real, having tried to control our children, try to control our friendships, trying to control our partners, trying to control whatever. We did it because we were living the nightmare. It's okay. Now we want to live the happy dream. Well, guess what? You are the one who has to make the decision which one is your reality. That's what the Course helps us understand, is that we create our own reality based on what we choose to believe. And when you choose to believe that you can create in a higher frequency, then that's what you'll experience. Even while you're in the world, you're not of it, because you're utilizing the world to have a human experience, to experience separation, but in a joyful way. So I only go to naturopaths. I don't buy into the 3D medical world. Doesn't mean I wouldn't use it if I felt that that's what I needed to do. But where I am today with how I experience this physical vessel, I choose to not buy into lots of worldly rules and laws and regulations because they don't apply to me. They apply to those who believe that they apply to them. But I live under no laws but God. So I have a lot of freedom to walk around on this planet without fear. So the justification for forgiveness is an important statement, because I know, like in the conversation with my son, I quickly forgive myself for going into a lower frequency. I quickly forgave myself for like 3 seconds. I entertained judging and I went, oh my God, I got to contract myself to be righteous. And I said, Spencer, forgive me. Those people were doing whatever they did. Can I help you process your anger with them? And then the conversation shifted for me to be in service, because how can I help him process anger to them if I am in anger with them? Then there's 2 of us drowning. So when we are aware that we have the power to shift, then we stand on higher ground and we throw a lifeline to anybody who's drowning. And if they take it, if they want to take it, and they don't, if they don't. But the justification for forgiveness, I love this. It starts in such a powerful way. Anger is never justified, never justified. To the ego, it is. But if you're not feeding the ego, why would you justify anger? Because to justify anger is to pull yourself to the lower frequency that makes victims and bullies real. The victim being my son, the bully being the dog and these people. So when those people that were observing the situation, they were in fear. They were feeling victimized because their ego was telling them, you don't have the ability to get that dog off of that boy. You don't have the ability to help. Their ego was lying to them lies so that they couldn't experience finding the power within them to be in service to the greater good, to be in service to others. But the beautiful thing about this is that them not being in service to my son has had my son see patterns where he believes that he's got to do everything all by himself, that nobody ever helps him, a pattern that he has picked up since childhood. So he's got to work through that, created an experience, because nothing happens randomly, created an experience where he had to see in a dire situation, nobody comes to help him. Now, if I had a dog attacking me for any reason, that's not going to happen. But if I had a dog attacking me, my belief is everybody helps me. Everybody's always there to help me. So I don't need to live an experience like my son did, because I don't have the belief to make that my reality. But he has that belief. So he will have to experience those things until he decides, you know what? I'm going to create a happier dream for myself. While we're all asleep, because believing that we are bodies is to be asleep, then why not create one where if I get in any kind of a situation that is dangerous, there are people there to help me. Well, if you believe that you're all by yourself, nobody's ever going to be there to help you. Even if they're there, they're not going to help you because they're giving you what you believe is true for you. All right, that's the power of becoming aware of patterns. And that requires an incredible level of honesty. It requires a willingness to not be right about what you believe, but always question your own beliefs. To me, that was a profound shift in my life when I decided, you know what, I'm not even going to believe my own thoughts. I'm not even going to believe when I believe that I'm right. And I began, it was crazy in my head. For a while, I felt schizophrenic because there would be a part of me that's judging, and I'm like, I'm going to judge, but we deserve to judge, but no, I'm going to judge, that little devil and angel on your shoulders. I was living that. We all have to live that, because we have to learn to override the voice that creates the suffering, because it's in your head. Most people don't hear what's in your head. Only you hear what's in your head, but you have to become a presence that is aware of the two voices. That level of awareness requires an incredible amount of honesty, where you can see the two thought systems and you can see this one takes me down, this one raises me up. Which one do I prefer to feel? Because they're regulating your physical experience, contraction or expansion, at unease or at ease. You have to be super honest that you don't need to be right about your judgments. You're recognizing I have a judgment. And then you realize, so you know what? Anger is never justified. I'm gonna justify forgiveness. I forgive myself for believing habitual thinking that pulls me into suffering. But I'm not going to be angry with myself for that. I'm not going to be angry with mom or grandma or cousin or whoever taught me that belief. I'm just going to forgive them. They didn't know what they were doing as much as I didn't know what I was doing, because we come into the planet of forgetfulness. So the next sentence says, attack has no foundation. The minute we attack another, we are basically saying, I'm a victim, I'm less than, I'm powerless, I'm incapable. Because attack then justifies you holding anger. And what does anger do? And when you understand the body, you begin to realize, so if I hold this anger, my mind is thinking these thoughts, those neurological pathways are activated, chemicals are being produced, and those chemicals are spewing messages into our body. And if I'm going to be angry, then I'm going to have to feel the dis-ease of anger. And if you've spent most of your life angry, upset, unworthy, unlovable, not believing that you are important or that you matter, well, guess what? Your chemical factory's been producing a lot of chemicals that are sending signals to your body that are making your body sick, that are creating all of the illnesses. The diseases come because you're not at ease within your own self. So this is why you don't want to justify attacks. And you've got to understand that it really has no foundation. It's not a solid thing. You can always, always, always override your own thinking. You can decide, like you pick your clothes, pick your thoughts. You can decide, I'm not going to think that thought that makes me feel bad. I don't need the hit, because it's an addiction to be right. I don't need the hit of righteousness anymore. Because when we experience the hit of righteousness, then we're always going to experience the withdrawal of when we discover we were wrong in the human world. Things don't go our way, we're going to be depressed. So when you ride that roller coaster of righteousness, right and wrong, you're sending chemicals through your body that are going to create a lot of discomfort. So let's keep going. Sentence 3. It is here escape from fear begins and will be made complete. You must not believe in anger. You must decide, nope, I'm not going to be angry at anybody. Not myself, not my parents, not nobody. You make a decision you don't want to be angry. You make a decision you don't want to attack yourself and others, because the ego convinces us that if I'm angry at you, I'm angry at mom or dad, that then I'm attacking them. I'm going to keep them away from me before they can attack me. So the ego, through our anger, convinces us who to hold out. Do you know how much work it takes to build walls and maintain the walls? Well, I'm not going to call them, oh, it's their birthday, I'm not going to call them, or it's their whatever. You see them on the street and you go across the road because you don't want to be on the same side of the street with that person that hurt you. Once you make the decision that you're not going to be angry and you're not going to be attacking, meaning blaming others, it is here that escape from fear begins. Because when you make the decision you're not going to hurt yourself, you then now are saying, this is where, again, honesty comes in. I'm going to watch every thought that I have that creates fear. And if I'm in fear, I'm going to be in protection mode. If I'm protecting, I'm going to be attacking. If I'm attacking, I'm going to get angry with the people that I'm attacking. So all of these things operate in a very, very easy to see pattern. But you have to have had enough self-awareness to see the patterns. And most people, in the old days, the days when I began my journey, takes decades to see patterns, because we are thinking patterns and we believe the patterns and we're right in our patterns. So it's very difficult to see it. Only through a commitment, like, every one of you that are here have coached with me, are coaching with me. So we can see patterns and we can begin to see this connects with that, and we connect the dots and it makes perfect sense. But the days of it being really slow are pretty much over. We are now at a time when there's an intensity to begin to look at our patterns, to begin to look at the importance of, why is this fear coming up? Let me look at it, because I want to move out of the egoic low frequency. So you've got to be clear that you don't want to be angry anymore. And to not be angry, you got to stop needing to be right. And that's when escape begins. So here is the real world given in exchange for dreams of terror. The minute that you decide you don't want to be right about your own suffering, about righteousness, you now, as it says in here is the real world given in exchange. You now give yourself permission to experience your reality as a creator. Well, what would I prefer instead? Instead of fear and attack, what would I prefer to experience? I want people to get along. Not just saying it, but you become the one that then gets along with all. You become the one that doesn't need to judge that one that you were judging before. And of course, people are going to start thinking, what's wrong with you? You're not attacking me, or you're not yelling at me, and you're like, no, I like to feel good now. Attacking you made me feel righteous, but I gave up that addiction. I don't want that anymore. I prefer to be at peace. I rather have peace instead of this situation where I was blaming you or judging you. Sentence 5, for it is on this forgiveness rests and is but natural. The minute that you decide to exchange the world of tightness and tension and unease for the world of relaxation and peace and being at ease and well-being, is where you have to then observe there are two worlds, two experiences. Which one am I going to create? I am the creator of my reality. There's the old world of suffering, and there is a new world of joy and peace, because millions have chosen a world of transparency, of truth, of integrity. The old that has been based on lies and deceit and control is crumbling, because there aren't 8 billion of us supporting that. There's probably a good billion people who have moved. And so much of this was thanks to the pandemic that we went through. It caused people to lose jobs and stay inside, and a lot went into an inner journey. 7 billion, 8 billion people were caught up in what happened, but a small fraction, however, big enough in when you understand kinesiology and you understand energy, one that operates in this frequency is more powerful than a million that operate in this frequency. You saw that with Jesus, one person who went through what he went through, and how many billions of people haven't studied what he teaches and are attempting, if not perfectly, are attempting to be more loving and to live more by those truths, because he spoke a truth that was such high frequency that even in the midst of the lies that religion has used what he taught to use it for control and to hurt people, it still doesn't work. So many still can listen to Jesus and are not caught up in the religious lower frequencies. So when you make the decision to exchange the old for the new, the old has to collapse, because we're taking our energy away from it. We're saying, nope. Like for me, I do not participate in what is that called? Insurance. I couldn't even think of the name because I don't do it. I don't participate in medical insurance. Can you imagine when millions of people don't pay into that system? That crumbles. Then what happens? Doctors who are operating in integrity, who charge a fair price, knowing, okay, we're in competition. Nobody has insurance. Nobody else is going to pay for it. Let us treat people directly with integrity, with transparency. Let us work with them. And you work out something that is equitable. It's a fair exchange, 1-to-1. But when the government gets involved and it creates, these global insurance systems and what they call in the US Obamacare, now you've got a third party involved. Well, they got to get paid. And who's going to pay them? You are. We think we don't pay it, but we do, because it may not be, because there's deception involved. It doesn't happen on the front end, but it's happening on the back end. So there are things that cause everything to rise in prices, because that's going to get paid from somewhere. But when it's transparent and it's you and the other, there's no middle person involved. That's why the church is going to go away as it is. We don't need a middle person to help us connect with God. We need to come inside. We don't need a middle person to like in the medical system. We need to go directly to the one that knows us best, that we work with them. So many things are breaking down in the old because we've pulled our energy from it. So, and that's why it's going to accelerate in the breaking down, because so many more are saying, wait a second, there's too much deception. There's too much lying. Why are things not transparent? When you get honest, you begin to see, you begin to notice transparency versus lies and deception. You begin to not only see it out there because you have soul vision, you've got the sight to see what's going on, but you also have intuition and you have insight, and you can feel it. You can feel the resonance of what is not true. So we got to train ourselves to be able to have these experiences. So sentence 6, you are not asked to offer pardon where attack is due and would be justified. It's not up to us to pardon people, to say, okay, you know what, I forgive you for all the wrong that you did to me. Like I could say to my former husband, Ken, you know, I forgive you for all the bad things that you did to me. I'm going to pardon you, because that's to make that real. What happens is that I forgive myself for ever attacking another, forever believing that I was less than because of the things that he said about me. And I'm forgiving me for buying into anything that was external. So it's all 100% an inside job. For that would mean that you forgive a sin by overlooking what is really there. Well, I pardon you. You did terrible things to me, but I'm gonna forgive you, and I'll forgive, but I'm not gonna forget. This is not pardon, for it would assume that by responding in a way which is not justified, your pardon will become the answer to attack that has been made. And thus is pardon inappropriate by being granted where it is not due. What all that translates to is, if you ever say, well, I forgive you, mom or dad or whatever, for the bad things that you did to me, you're saying you're forgiving, but you're holding that vibration as real. You did something to me. Now I'm going to forgive you because I'm higher consciousness than you. I'm spiritual and you're not. I'm going to forgive you. That's the ego that has become spiritualized. That is saying the bad thing that you did to me really happened. And while you believe it really happened, you have an ego attachment. You hurt me. I'm going to pardon you because, you know, it's good for my internal chemical factory. I don't want to be producing all these chemicals of anger. But if the forgiveness is not a forgiveness that says, I forgive you for not knowing what you did, complete love. You didn't know what you were doing. You were operating from your conditioning. You were operating from wherever you were. Nobody just falls down here. We got to be indoctrinated down into those frequencies by unconscious parents that teach us that that's true. True forgiveness says, whatever you did to my human self never affected my soul. This is where we begin to separate what happened to my body, what you said, what you did. Those things, yeah, they happened. They were experiences that we had, but they never affected my soul. I'm living now from my higher self. My higher self does not want to hold on to attachments of what you did wrong to me, because you cannot do anything wrong to that which is whole, perfect, and complete. I'm now identified. You know, we got all these identifying LGBTQ plus. Well, I identify as a spirit that is totally free. That, if you want to ask my pronouns, spirit. That's who I am. That's what I am. Pure spirit, free from anything that binds me to the 3D world that I am moving from. So we want to be really clear that we want to learn what true forgiveness is about, because we need to justify the forgiveness that has been given to us as our way out of insanity, which is very simple. Whatever happened here to my physical body never touched my soul. It is our soul that is leading us up into the higher frequencies. While we're moving into those higher frequencies, we will still have a body, because we're waking up in these vessels. We're waking up in this form, and what we're doing is we're elevating our form. We are giving our bodies, you know, so many of us, when we enter this journey, eventually all of us, there's no way to escape this. When your thoughts are high vibing, you will not put things into your body that are low frequency. When you begin to realize that you want to have a real well-oiled machine, if you want to call it that, your vessel, your vehicle that you're traveling in for your soul to express itself on a physical form, you're not going to want to put things in it that are not of high frequency. It becomes natural to eventually give up things that are low vibration. Eventually you give up junk food, you give up meats in many cases, you give up alcohol, you give up those things that are low vibration. And little by little by little, the body becomes so healthy, so absolutely transformed over time. And it could be quite a few lifetimes. We will have what are known as crystalline bodies, meaning that they're not going to be operating in density. They literally are going to be vibrating such high frequency that you don't even have a physical body. So the physical body is part of the experience of the ego to have a third dimensional life, but that brings about life and death and suffering and pain and discomfort and haves and have nots and attacks and lack and limitation. When you want to play the game and have a happy dream, then your body vessel, it has to be a match to your thoughts and your belief system, because you would be very incongruent. You wouldn't be able to sustain high thoughts and a life of eating and doing unhealthy things with your body. The frequencies are too far apart. You'd be basically, you would realize, okay, I'm lying to myself that I'm a high vibing being if I'm just filling my body vessel with junk. It happens when it happens. For all of us, there's a moment where there's a shift. For some people, they give up those lower frequency movies or music or food or places that they might frequent early on in the journey. And maybe they get into yoga and they just want to do everything natural and healthy, but the mind hasn't caught up. Eventually, they have to do the mind work and the emotional work. For some people, they start with the mind work or the emotional work, and then the body catches up. Either way, mind, body, spirit has to be in alignment. And the course is giving us exactly how to work on the mind. And I can assure you, you do the work in the mind, and you will be able to release the emotional part. So mind and emotions begin clear because you're finding the truth of who you are, the spirit that you are. The body will eventually catch up because you will feel the sluggishness. You will be more present to feeling what's going on with the body. And so many of us are experiencing recalibrations. Recalibrations is we're releasing, and we get to a certain point when there's enough awareness, there's enough consciousness that you've already made the decision. I want to be free. And when you make that decision, I want to only be under no laws but God's. I only want to do God's will, which God's will is for you to be happy. I mean, who the heck doesn't want to know the God that wants that for us? Who doesn't want to come to understand what that means? When you compare it to this God of fear and suffering and, fire and brimstone and all that other stuff, whatever, it's such a natural process. But we are in the midst of acceleration. And the acceleration is because many are shifting, many are moving. There are so many teachings and teachers, and just the information has just been proliferated throughout this world quickly through the internet, through technology. So many are accessing truth and they want to move to this direction. The invitation through these transmissions is to receive what resonates and leave what doesn't. We cannot make anything happen that we are resisting. It's just not going to happen. But if you've made a decision that you want to operate at the highest of frequencies, I cannot stress enough the importance of understanding what the Course in Miracles is teaching, because it's breaking things down in the simplest way. This is what the ego says. This is what God says. And then you get to pick. The Course doesn't make you pick. It just gives you the options, the two options to pick between. Our work is to be so present to what we're thinking minute by minute by minute that we feel this thought lowers my vibration. This one raises my vibration. This one makes me feel tight and tense. This one makes me feel at ease and at peace. That you are constantly observing the thoughts that are happening, because there won't be that many. The more you move down this path, the mind gets quieter and quieter and quieter, because you don't need to regurgitate nonsense. And it's just not necessary to keep repeating the things that are of the ego. That you become so present, you're constantly choosing between Which voice do you want to listen to? And when you choose deliberately to only listen to the voice for God, you are co-creating a new beginning. You are co-creating a new earth. You're part of the shift that is bringing about the change that is going to allow you to experience the new earth. Now, I don't get into the other parts of things that I have come to know as true. I don't teach about those because there are others who teach those things in a beautiful way because they're experts at that. My expertise is to help you see your ego and transcend it. But what I will share here is because in oneness, everything happens at once. We are all operating in multiple timelines. We're all operating. There's a version of me here. There's a version of me here or here, whatever, and millions in between. So we are operating in multiple timelines at once because so many on this planet, millions, if not billion, I'm going to say billions, want to live from integrity. It's obvious that we want integrity, that we want healthier things. If you look at Europe and you see all the farmers that are up in arms, they want to live in the integrity that they can grow healthy food. They don't want to poison their food. They don't want to pesticides. They don't want to do those things. They don't want to pay those crazy taxes for feeding humanity. That's a consciousness that is saying, I don't want the old ways of doing things. I want to go back. Well, not even go back. I want to go forward and do what is natural. So they have activated a desire that is bringing about a pulling away from the old and into the new. They don't even need to be on a spiritual journey. That is spirit moving through them to want to do things that are healthy for the physical vessel. So many are pulling away from the old, giving us an opportunity to see so clearly that it is time for those who want to wake up to make a choice, and those who don't want to wake up, they're going to be in a timeline that allows them to continue to descend if that's what they want. And that's okay, because as creators of our own reality, if somebody wants to enter the haunted house, let them. It's their choice. But you, a student of A Course in Miracles, one who recognizes that you are the light of the world, you will not feel comfortable moving forward if you don't stand grounded in the truth of how powerful you are. And your power comes from the thoughts that you think, because what you believe creates your reality. We all believed in the 3D world and we made it real for us. Now we're believing that things can be better and we're making that real. So as you move about your day and you catch the thoughts and you have thoughts that are of anger or of attack or of resentments, forgive yourself. Allow yourself to justify the freedom that forgiveness gives you. You deserve it. So with that, we complete today's transmission. This is episode 141. And we'll catch up next week on and go on to paragraph number 2. But if anybody has anything you want to share, unmute yourselves. Otherwise, I will see you next week for another episode. These are fun experiences for me because I feel such energized movement happening through this body vessel when I deliberately choose to share what is true for me. And anybody who wants to receive it, great. If you don't, it's all good too. Because I know you're a powerful creator and you get to create whatever you want. All right, guys. Love you all. See you next time. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.